Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to the Foreplay Phenoms 2.0 Personal League podcast. If you tuned in to watch the Armchair Fantasy Show on our normal nights, we are actually doing a Personal League podcast tonight instead. We will be back next week with the Armchair Fantasy Show. We are breaking down a 10-team Dynasty League tonight. We will count them down from 10 to 1. And we got these guys here on the panel to break down each team. Let's go ahead and meet the panel real quick. First up, we got Ryan. Of course, he is the co-host with me on the Armchair Fantasy Show, also co-host the Dynasty Big Board, and you can follow him on Twitter at Foss534. What's up, Ryan?
What's up? That's weird. I say my other stuff too. It like threw me for a loop.
Tonight, you're just a panel member. You're not really even a co-host.
Dude, it's super weird. I don't know how I feel.
Good deal. All right. Next up, we have Raul, host of the Fantasy Assessment Podcast right here on Going42. He's also a writer and ranker at Going42, and you can follow him at nraul11 on Twitter. What's up, Raul?
How's it going, guys? Jeff, Ryan, Shane, good to be here. Love doing these. Well, it's actually only my second PLP, but this is essentially what we do in the fantasy assessment, but just one team at a time. So, if you want more advice, come check out that show I host with Jerry Wilkie. It's a good time, but I'm excited to be here tonight.
Good stuff. Yeah, Raul only does the PLPs, but he does actually probably more of these team breakdowns than we do because his whole show is based around team breakdowns.
Right.
Love it. Also joining us tonight, Shane. He's the host of the Red Zone Redemption and creator of the Polly's Playoff Charity Leagues. You can follow him at FFShaneB. And Shane, you reached your goal, right, on the Polly's Playoff League?
We did reach our goal, and I believe one of your writers, Prue Patel, is making a matching donation because we hit our goal. So we got $480 raised for the Alzheimer's Association yesterday because we hit our goal of 240 people. So nice. I have been very busy and on my phone way too much for the last week. But it was all for a good cause, and now I'm getting invites out, and the league will start rolling on Monday. And I've got a pot-a-thon for that too. So,
all right, good stuff. All right, guys, we got some bad news. The Going42 Personal League podcast have sold out for 2023. But if you order yours for 2024, you can save 20%. So what is the Personal League podcast? Basically what you're watching right now. We're going to go through this league and we're going to break it down. It's a 1 hour, typically 1 hour, 1.5 hours. Sometimes we go 2 hours, dedicated entirely to your league. We rank them from worst to first, break down each one, strengths, weaknesses. We give you trade advice. Drafting advice if it's pre-NFL draft. Visit goingfor2.com/PLP. Use the promo code earlybird24 and save 20%. That makes it as low as $7 per person in a 12-man league. So just raise your entry fee $7. No one will even notice it. And get yourself a PLP for next year. They are already booking up. We've already got 3 in July and 2 in June next year. So get in there pretty quickly. Again, that's goingfor2.com/PLP. All right, let's get to team number 10.
Number 10.
Number 10 team was ranked as high as 6 and as low as 10, and it is El Champos Champion. And Raul, this is your team. I almost said Shane. Raul, this is your team.
Yes, sir. El Chapo's Champions. Here we've got quarterback Anthony Richardson, Geno Smith, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Gardner Minshew. Running back, we've got ETN, Akers, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, Kendre Miller, Jerome Ford, Zamir White, Kareem Hunt, Deuce Vaughn, and Keyshawn Vaughn. You don't really see 2 Vaughns at a team, even one Vaughn for that. Wide receiver got Christian Watson, Treylon Burks, George Pickens, what's his first name? DeAndre Hopkins, Elijah Moore, Nico Collins, DJ Chark, Chase Claypool, Puka Nacua, Jalen Tolbert, Kyle Phillips, and A.T. Perry. Tight end, we've got Kyle Pitts, Juwan Johnson, and Tucker Kraft. So, my man, you're sitting here in 10th, and I got to tell you, as my overarching one-line summary, I think this is a tear-down candidate. And, I like the pieces. There are some very interesting young pieces on this team, but the first, the glaring omission, which is a little bit hard to tell because of courtesy of Flea Flicker. So first of all, actually switch over from Flea Flicker, please. But not having your 24 first in a team like this, that's going to be a big miss, because I would say this is going to be a pretty early first. Second, if you don't have your first, you want to be a win now team, and this is simply not a team that's built to compete. Even the younger pieces that you like aren't really going to be the most productive ones. So for me, really, I legitimately might put everyone on the block, barring Kyle Pitts. And that's only because Kyle Pitts is probably at, everything can go lower, but Kyle Pitts is probably at, a valley in terms of his value. Pieces like AR, Watson, Burks, George Pickens, you want to have them. You like having them, but I'd like to have them more on a stable team. And those are the kinds of players that could easily be far lower than where they are valued right here. AR is going in the top 15 of startup drafts right now. And if you can flip that for a more stable quarterback, I would certainly explore that. I like some of these players, but this is just not the team that can feature some, even a Travis Etienne. Cam Akers is a sneaky play. But I would kind of start sending those offers out, capitalize on the value while you have them, maybe wait into the season for the running backs. But this is a team that needs a lot of work to compete, to even make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, this team seems to have a lot of young players obviously are on this team. And then you have like the, DeAndre Hopkins mixed in there. It seems like a lot of young players that, at least as of yet, have not reached their full potential. Kyle Pitts, Treylon Burks, even George Pickens. I know he's a rookie last year. This year we expect him to be much better. Even Cam Akers, the guys that have obviously met their potential. Travis Etienne, DeAndre Hopkins. Those are guys that you like to have in your starting lineup. But Shane, I want to go to you because you had this team ranked the highest. You had them at 6, and I'm curious to what you saw that you liked about this team.
I liked all the young pieces. I was honestly surprised when I saw that everybody but me had this team ranked at 10 just because of the youth on this team. And it doesn't, it's not just in the starting lineup either. Like, if you go down into the bench, you've got some guys who may have some sneaky, I don't want to say availability, but just some sneaky value with Zamir White, because Josh Jacobs is potentially holding out. Jerome Ford, because there's not an RB2 in Cleveland. Kendre Miller, I think, is a great dynasty play, and that's just 3 of the guys on the bench. I also love DJ Chark, Chase Claypool, and Elijah Moore, and Nico Collins. That's 4 guys right there on the bench that I really, really like to have a ton of upside. And then in the starting lineup, Travis Etienne is one of my favorite guys. I really think Treylon Burks is going to have a good year. Raul already hit on Kyle Pitts. And the QB1, QB2 in this team for a Superflex team, I don't think is horrible, but you are heavily relying on Anthony Richardson hitting. I'm an SEC fan, so I don't know if I believe in that yet. But the rushing upside is there for Richardson as well. So I was very confused on why I was the only one that had him where I did.
Yeah, it was a tough league to sort of evaluate, and I had a hard time putting teams in different places. And it comes down to the quarterback, really, and that's kind of why I had him at 10, because you mentioned AR, tremendous upside, but his floor is basically 0. Then you got on the bench Jordan Love, Gardner Minshew, Sam Darnold, and then Geno Smith. Smith obviously is serviceable. He's going to be there for at least one more year. Love could potentially bust. Gardner Minshew's a backup. Darnold's a backup. So that position can go ugly really quickly. If Geno moves on next year, after this year coming up, if AR ends up being a bust, this team is going to be in shambles. Now, if AR hits and you can get a quarterback in next year's draft, then this team has some pieces that could break out, like Christian Watson. The Dynasty community loves Christian Watson. They love George Pickens. If these guys end up hitting their potential, this team has some good.
So, I have a question about the potential QB3 on this team, because I don't know if we've talked about him, and it's Jordan Love. That I think that was also another reason that I didn't have him as low, is because yes, he's got AR, yes, he's got Geno, and yes, then he's got Jordan Love. So 2 question marks with Love and Richardson, but if both of them hit, then you've got 3 starting quarterbacks. If one out of the 2 of them, then you've got 2 and a guy that sucks. And then the other thing that I wanted to add, like some players I would trade off of this team are obviously Hopkins, Geno, and then David Montgomery is sitting on the bench too.
Yeah, I agree. Get rid of the older guys. If you're going to go all young, just go all in. Just get all the young guys and just hope that you hit on a few of them.
I'd say the issue is why it's 10 is this is a 10-team league, and there's no truly elite players on this team. Like, you don't have that one guy who can win you a week on this team. You can maybe hope it's Anthony Richardson. You hope that Travis Etienne is going to take a full workload, but it's still question marks with what they brought in. There's just no one who's that guy on the team. You hope it's Kyle Pitts, but there's still a lot of question marks in that offense who wants to run. That's the difference. If you're in a 10-team league, you need to have 2 or 3 superstar players, and that's what separates good teams from bad teams, because you're not going to compete unless you have guys who are blowing up every single week.
Yeah,
because you're going to score so many more points in leagues like this.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you're right. I mean, this team in a 10-team league, you expect to have at least one stud that you can count on week in and week out. I don't know if he has that guy. So
if this is a 12-team or 14-team league, I'm fine.
Yeah,
but like at a 10. It just needs more firepower. Like, I'd be moving 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deals, trying to get just elite players and chalking the season up.
Yep, good deal. All right, let's get to the next team.
Number 9.
Number 9 team was ranked unanimously as the number 9 team. We all had them at number 9. It is Ricky Tiki Tavi and Shane. This is your squad. Go ahead and break them down.
Yeah, so first things first, get your fucking league off of Flea Flicker and move to Sleeper.
Yes.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I really wanted to rank this team higher than 9, but there were other teams that ended up pushing this team down. You've got Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa, who I think are 2, as long as they're healthy, top 12 quarterbacks, and they're both super young. So I love that start for you. Your running back room is probably what pushed you down to 9 for me, with Devon Achane and Jamal Williams, who is just getting hit more and more with the different news coming in. If you haven't seen it, Kareem Hunt looking like he's going to sign with the Saints. But then you've got Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, and Hollywood Brown as your wide receivers, and Mark Andrews as your tight end, and then Mike Williams in the flex. Like, that's a really, really good core of players right there. Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to go absolutely nuts. Hollywood Brown will be fine, whoever the quarterback is, I think, just because they don't really have anybody else to throw to that I really trust at this point. Mark Andrews is that stud that Ryan talked about, because he's the wide receiver 1 for Baltimore. He's probably going to fight me on that in a minute.
No, he is.
But you've also got some players I like on the bench. Isaiah Spiller, I think, is another sneaky guy. Sky Moore could be a breakout. Justin Ross, Marvin Mims, Jalen Hyatt, Jaden Reed, Keyshawn Boutte. This team is really, really young, and I really liked them from a dynasty perspective. You have first and second round pick in 24. But no 25 picks, so figure that out. But I really, really liked this team, but couldn't move them up past 9 because of the running back room.
Yeah, I was in the same boat too, because I like this team as well, and this is kind of how I like to build my dynasty teams. You get young receivers, get good quarterbacks, and then just kind of punt running back until you can get some good ones. The Devon Achane kind of throws that off a little bit, but I think he kind of had that same mindset. He's got his.
But there's only one wide receiver though, like one good young wide receiver.
Garrett Wilson. I mean that
right.
Marquise Brown still. He's not that old.
No, but he's in a terrible quarterback situation. Godwin's getting up there. Mike Williams is old.
Yeah.
I honestly would think about. I might switch this in 10. This team in 10. If it wasn't for the quarterbacks.
Yeah, the quarterbacks is what really got me to go up to 9, because you're right. I mean, I love Garrett Wilson. I think Chris Godwin's fine. Marquise Brown, I think, is fine. Yes, they're not super young, but they are on the younger end. They're not quite to their prime yet.
Hollywood Brown's only 26, 25, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely not old. I think Chris Godwin might be a little bit older, and obviously had some injuries in his career, but I think he's still fairly young. Obviously, both of those guys play in current terrible offenses with the Bucs and the Cardinals. We hope the Cardinals can get better once Kyler gets back. We don't really know what that's going to look like. And then the Bucs are just in shambles right now because Tom Brady retired and they don't have a quarterback right now. But I think this team is for a number 9 team. If things go the right way, I think this team can still be in contention to make the playoffs. There's 6 teams make the playoffs in this league. I think this team could definitely be one of those top 6 teams. There's not much difference between the 5 team and the 9 team. Is it kind of splitting hairs a little bit? But I like this team a lot. I'll go to you, Ryle. What are your thoughts on this team?
Right. I do just want to – I like a lot of the pieces, and that's why I think I personally, and seems like most people in this show agreed, that's why we had them over El Chapo's, the last team, is because you have pieces there that you can build around for sure. Without any doubt, you're going to be able to build around Justin Herbert and Garrett Wilson and Mark Andrews too, to maybe not the same extent, but Mark Andrews will be in your lineup this year, next year, the year after, like when a team is probably ready for a push. In the last team, I don't think we saw with that same certainty that we could say that the better players in that team are 100% going to be part of a playoff or championship push in future seasons. So I like the pieces here, and quick shout out to Hard Knocks because Garrett Wilson is going to be a superstar. This guy just has that aura about him. I love the guy. But yeah, it's a tough league to really stand out in, and in another setting, it might be higher than 9th, or penultimate team. But that's where it is here.
All right, let's get to number 8.
Number 8.
Number 8 team ranked as high as 7 and as low as 8, and it is Chuck O. Stick. And Ryan, this is your team.
I think they have a lot of really, really good pieces on there. It's just pieces with some question marks. Trevor Lawrence, superstar. He's going to be who you build this team around. Jonathan Taylor's a little bit in limbo. Tony Pollard kind of has some question marks with his health. Ken Walker is in also a questionable situation, but still a really nice running back core. It's just no protection for them after that. Like if one of these guys don't hit because of either injury, holding out, or losing touches, you're not trusting a ton off the bench off that other than Kamara, who's, again, a huge question mark. Love Drake London. I think he's fine as your wide receiver 1 with that running back group. And looking at it, seeing the Zay Flowers in there instead of Calvin Ridley kind of changed the view of how that team looks, maybe move it up a spot or 2. But it's a team I think it's a team that's 1 or 2 moves away from being contention because there's some vets who you can move either during the season if things are going right or wrong with Michael Thomas and Juju Smith-Schuster at wide receiver. I looked at a running back, and I know we love Dolchich. Everyone loves Dolchich, but I try to upgrade that as well as the QB2 if possible because I don't want to trust Matt Stafford as my QB2 with Cooper Kupp in limbo right now. So it's a weird mix of old and young, which I don't completely love. It's not one way or the other. I think that's the reason I have it as low as it is, but there's some very nice pieces on this team, and it has a ton of upside on it.
Yeah, I agree. They got a ton of upside. And again, I mean, every team from basically 9 on up, I think, could make a move or 2 here and there and be in contention to go into the playoffs. And I think this is another team in that same boat, because Matthew Stafford, for this season is a good QB2. You're going to need to find somebody to replace him. I don't know if Desmond Ridder is that guy that you have on your bench currently. I think you need to find somebody else to basically replace Stafford. But anytime you got Jonathan Taylor and Drake London, I love Brandon Ayuk. Tony Pollard will be solid. I think Kenneth Walker will be good. And those are a lot of good pieces for a team that we have ranked at number 8 in a 10-team league. a lot of firepower that can either be moved, or if you could sell some of those other guys at the right time, like, Alvin Kamara, if you sell him when he's coming back from his 3-game suspension, when the hype is there, oh, Kamara's coming back and this and that, maybe you sell him at that point and get some more pieces. But this team has some good firepower. What about you, Shane? What are your thoughts here?
I mean, this team I had ranked as 7th just simply because they have my new favorite team's quarterback. But I agree with a lot of what you said. I probably ranked them lower because I'm not a big Dulcich guy, but ranked them a little bit higher because I do believe in Desmond Ridder. I think I'm like maybe one of 3 people left on that train.
And one of them is Desmond Ridder, and one of them is Desmond Ridder's mom.
Exactly. No, I think Joel is still there with me too. You've got Ridley, Michael Thomas, Juju, and Gabe Davis on the bench, and that's a lot of firepower. But I think, to Ryan's point, like you could go and consolidate those players or even a couple of other players to improve your starting lineup and really make a push to get into that playoff range, because we all had you ranked just outside of it.
This seems there's a lot of fire sale players though if you're not in contention come week like 8.
Yeah.
Like you can get like these veteran running backs and those bench wide receivers and Michael Thomas, Juju, and Calvin Ridley. You sell them off midseason if you're not where you need to be. You can make this team really good, really, really fast.
Yeah.
If you're contending, roll with it and do the opposite and move like younger guys. But if you're struggling, man, you can make some moves with those guys and just load up. Because if Jonathan Taylor's back, which he will be, you can flip him mid-season to something really good. Like there's a lot you can do with this team. It could be really good if played the right way.
Absolutely. And to your point, if he is struggling in the season and decides to sell some players off, he owns his own picks as well. So he would have a potentially better first round pick if he was to trade some of those pieces away and sort of not tank, but sort of slide down the rankings a little bit. So yeah, definitely a good thing there. All right, let's get to team number 7.
Number 7.
Number 7, it was ranked as high as 5 and as low as 7, and I'm sorry, as low as 8. And it is Billy Vin Beazel. Billy Vin Beazel, I guess. I don't know how to say that. But anyways, Ryan, this is also your team here. Give us your breakdown.
Oh, he mixed Billy Bean and Vin Diesel. I get it. Billy Vin Diesel.
Billy Vin Diesel.
Oh, good. So this team's very similar. A lot of talent on it. Honestly, not as much question marks. My only issue I have is like the continuities. They have all these veterans in their starting lineup at every position of quarterback who they went super young with.
Yep.
And mixing that old and young, it kind of puts you in that limbo round that hits you that mid-tier round unless one of these quarterbacks really hit, even though they're on really bad teams. So that's my fear of the team. I love Javonte Williams, especially if he's healthy now. A year ago he was running back 3 in Dynasty, and he got injured. Everybody forgot about him. So it has upside. I'm a full believer in Dameon Pierce being a 250 touch back. Diggs and Adams. Adams has a downside, but he's still good. And Terry McLaurin's still a wide receiver too. There's a ton to like, but man, get a veteran quarterback. Go trade some picks and get an unsexy veteran quarterback like a Kirk Cousins or
he has
Derek Carr.
He has the sexiest veteran quarterback already on the roster.
That's gross.
Literally.
I mean, he's garbage. But let's be real. Like, if you get yourself a legit top 12 quarterback, even bottom of the line, who can be safe and keep those 2 young guys, you're in great shape. Yeah. That's the only beef. And I don't love the bench on this team as much. Like, Sutton and Lockett are really the only great pieces. There's just a bunch of question marks. Again, 10-team league, you need to have a pretty solid bench. And there's just not a ton there to like. There's no real starting running backs other than Pacheco. Like, you're so close to being a good team.
Yeah.
It's just a couple moves.
So I had this team ranked the highest at number 5, and the reason I did, because if you scroll all the way down on our spreadsheet there, he actually owns 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. I'm sorry, 1 second-round pick for next year. And those 3 firsts basically give him the flexibility to do a lot of things in season. If he has those quarterbacks and he wants to package one of those quarterbacks with a first-round pick to upgrade to go for it all, there's so much he can do. He can package, one of those bench guys, which I don't know if there's too many guys that could package to get a quarterback, but if you package, one of those guys plus a Jimmy Garoppolo and a pick, maybe you can get another quarterback that way. There's just so many things he can do with this team with those first round picks that give him the flexibility, which I didn't mention it in the beginning. We don't rank these teams necessarily worst to first. These are ranked in the order we would want to take them over. And this I had at 5 because I like having extra picks to do some things, because picks is basically currency in Dynasty, and it allows you to buy things. It allows you to move things around. So having those 3 picks is definitely a big thing.
This is what I'm saying to do, and this is going to sound insane. Take those 3 first, Jimmy Garoppolo, hit up Ricky Tiki-Tavi, offer that up for Justin Herbert, another small piece. Dude, just sell the farm for Herbert. You roll in there with Herbert on that lineup, and your pick of Stroud or Young for your QB2 based off matchups that week, you're a contender immediately.
Yeah.
And Ricky Tiki-Tavi is in great shape rebuilding this team with those 3 firsts.
Yeah, that's a good
plus what he has. It's a win-win for everybody.
It's a good call. Raul, you had this team at number 7. What are your thoughts here on this team?
Yeah, I think similarly to you, Jeff, obviously the picks, really stood out. It just Diggs and Adams it's like, what are they doing on this team? Like, how do they get into this room? There's a case for whether, like, maybe 3 weeks in, start 3-0, Javonte comes back and actually, miraculously returns to the field quicker than we expected. And you can go ahead and make a trade like that. It's also very easy to see a scenario in which you start 0-3, send those veterans on their merry way, and you're locked for a top 4 pick. And then that's just so much capital to build. So I really like where this team could go. Just as we're sitting here looking at it, the build is a little bit strange.
It is. It's almost like he started off going like, I'm going to go super young and go with what do they call it? A productive struggle type team. And then halfway through, he's like, oh, wait, Devontae Adams is falling. Let me draft him. Oh, the Stephon Diggs is falling. Let me draft him. And then he kind of got the really young guys and he got really old guys that kind of all mixed on his team there. Kind of he changed strategies.
I hate the strategy change mid-draft.
Yeah.
It just drives me absolutely bonkers.
Sometimes, though, when those guys are falling, they get so tempting. You're like, man, Devontae Adams has fallen into the whatever round he got him in. But it's tough. But again, I think there's some moves to be made with those picks that he has. He's got plenty of upside that he can do a lot of things with it. All right, let's get to number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6 team has quite a bit of disparity here. So it was ranked as high as number 3 and as low as number 10. Raul, you had them at 4, and this is your team.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to hear Shane's thoughts on this one, because I honestly love this team. It's kind of like a team that I would build, going in strong with Fields and Watson. Obviously, some risk baked into both those, but in a 10 team, you can certainly afford to take a little bit more risk. And then there's Aaron Rodgers to back those two up. Running back, we've got Josh Jacobs, a little bit questionable with the situation, but he should be playing and he'll be hitting as long as he's on the field. Miles Sanders, who's I think quietly becoming, my guy for the redraft season. I think this is someone who could be a sneaky little bell cow with the money they've given him, the O-line at the Panthers. And you see all this talk and even video interviews of the coach saying like, hey, we want you to catch 50 balls. And it's the same coach under whom he had quite a big receiving game workload back in 2018, I believe. James Cook, Charbonnet, even Gibson gets some hype, getting some hype this year. Chase Brown. I like the running back room. I definitely think you can contend with this. Wide receiver, Very exciting to have Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, Jahan Dotson, Amari Cooper. Little bit shallow beyond that. No one I'd really feel confident tossing in. I mean, maybe an OBJ or Darius Slayton, depending on how they start the year, but a little bit shallow there. And then tight end, young and exciting with Pat Freiermuth, Sam Laporta, who's been getting a lot of hype of late, Jake Ferguson, who looks to have locked in tight end one, at least for this year, and Schoonmaker behind him. And then Gerald Everett, who could be a nice little play as well, with Kellen Moore coming over, seeing what he's done with Schultz over the last few years. So I really like this team. I think it can contend. It's got some long-term upside. If I had to make a move, I would consider trading James Cook away. He's been getting a little bit more hype. I personally don't believe that he's going to hit to the way that some analysts have been talking about. I just don't see the goal line work there with his 190 weight, and they've got two down bangers and Damian Harris and Latavius Murray there. Maybe flip James Cook to wide receiver depth. You do have Gibson to cover RB3, but overall, I am a big fan of this build here.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on most of this stuff too, because I had him at the highest at 3, and I forgot to give the team name. Too Fast, Too Furious. If you didn't already know, it's there on the screen, obviously. But for the audio people, Too Fast, Too Furious was the team. And you're right. This team has a mix of young and old as well, but I think it's a little bit more balanced, where some of the guys that he has, sort of can take over once those older guys move on. And in looking at the build, I was kind of trying to figure out why Shane had him at 10, and then I saw one name on this list that I'm pretty sure Shane had him at 10 because of that. So Shane, what are your thoughts here? You had him the lowest of all of us.
Yeah, so I took the team that I would least like to take over to heart with this team. It's not just the one name, which is Deshaun Watson. Fuck that guy. This team is literally compromised of players that I just don't like. I'm not a Fields guy. Not a Miles Sanders guy. My two favorite players on the team are Waddle and Jahan Dotson. I think Jahan Dotson is going to blow up this year, and I'm super excited for it. Amari Cooper is just meh, but Deshaun Watson kind of killed him. Already mentioned Deshaun Watson. Can't stand him. I'm not a Gibson guy. I'm not a James Cook guy. I agree with you there, Rahul. Odell can go, break his toe again or something. MVS can't catch.
Amari didn't get killed by him. He had 1160 and 9 touchdowns.
But if you go look at the splits of when he came back from his suspension, he killed Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper was Brissett. Brissett actually helped Amari Cooper, at least from my memory.
Yep. Exactly. If you go look at the splits with Brissett and Watson with Cooper, once Watson was back, both Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb fell from wide receiver 1 and RB1 territory, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this is just literally comprised of guys that I don't like. Another guy on your bench that I do love that we haven't talked about a whole ton is Jonathan Mingo. And that's just because for me, the Panthers wide receiver room is a giant question mark, but they have a bunch of guys that I think could easily step into wide receiver 1, and they've got a lot of potential, I think. So outside of Waddle, Dotson, and Mingo, I literally just hate this roster. It's nothing against the guy that drafted this or the talent of the team. It's just guys that I don't like necessarily having on my team.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the Mingo thing too, I think Mingo's in that weird space where we talk about as analysts, he got the draft capital. So he moved up because of that. Then there's people that are holding that against him. Well, we didn't even have him on our list to be up there that high. So he was kind of the surprise guy. So people are kind of holding him back from that, saying, well, he shouldn't have been a second round pick. They reached for him. So he's in that space where you either love Mingo or you don't like Mingo. And I'm on the don't like Mingo side. I don't know how you feel, Ryle. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I don't like. I'm not that much of a fan of Mingo. DJ Chark is a sneaky guy for me to lead that team in targets, and he's the cheapest value. But that's I guess in Dynasty too, but more redraft talk. Depth, really for me, depth and wide receiver is what I try to address. I do love that top four. There is shade. I do agree. There is a bit of projecting, beyond, of course, the off-field stuff. Even with Watson, it is a risk to say that he's going to come back in and be even take away what he did with the Texans, but even to be a top 10 QB after what we saw on the field, that is a big question mark. We are projecting a bit here, but I do like having that potential upside with both him and Cooper on this team.
Yeah, good call. I had him at 3 a lot because of the guys on the bench. I think he's got guys on his bench that can be starters on some of the teams that we have already talked about. You mentioned James Cook. Whether you love him or hate him, there's potential there that he could be a starting player in a dynasty roster.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Gibson's another guy that could potentially be. Zach Charbonnet. He's got a guy, a bunch of guys on his bench that I think could potentially be starters. Even Jonathan Mingo for that matter. So the depth there is something that we hadn't talked about yet with the other teams that didn't have depth. This team, I think, has a lot of depth.
Yeah, I mean, if you could send like James Cook for Deontay Johnson, maybe that's something that I'd consider. You could even get a little bit more on top for that with the hype that Cook's getting. But yeah.
See, as a Deontay owner, I don't know if I would take that unless I was really desperate at running back.
It really depends on where you sit with Deontay because he's getting some hate too. He's actually being drafted much lower than his teammate George Pickens, despite having 140.
There's 4 players in the last, I think, 3 years that have had 140 targets plus.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson is one of them. I think the other 2 are Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams, and I cannot remember the fourth one. Deontay Johnson was the only one last year that didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah, well, I went even further in players that get 140 targets over the last, I think I did 6 years as a sample size, averaged 7 touchdowns, and he had 0.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty big thing there. So, all right, let's get to team number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5 team ranked as high as 4 and as low as 7, and it is Cobra Kyler. And Shane, this is your squad here.
All right, looking at this team, you've got Lamar, Eckler, Dalvin Cook is in your starting lineup, and you've got Zeke and Fournette. So you're holding on to free agency running backs. Good luck with that. But then you do make up for it with A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, and DK Metcalf. That is one hell of a wide receiver trio. Dallas got it to top 6 tight end, I think, at worst. And then DJ Moore. Your QB2 is Kyler. QB3 is Lance. QB4 is Trask. QB5 is Pickett.
Pickett's the 3. Come on. That order's insane.
I was just literally reading them down the list.
I'm not saying.
And so here, maybe this will make you feel better, Ryan. If Kenny Pickett is your QB3, I think you're screwed. If Trey Lance is your QB3, I think you're kind of screwed. Those are 2 guys that I'm out on. Kenny Pickett, I think, came into the league at a ceiling and doesn't have much room to improve. Trey Lance has not played enough for us to know what the hell he's actually going to be. And I don't know what the Niners actually think about him. Like, do they love him? Do they hate him? Is it somewhere in the middle? Like, what do we do with Trey Lance? So if you can find a Trey Lance truther, I'd ship him off to that guy immediately.
Jeff.
Exactly.
I'm not actually.
But then I looked at this bench again, and I may have had them a little too high at 4. Now, you do have Roshan Johnson and Dwayne McBride and Evan Hull for rookie running backs. I think I like all 3 of those guys. Dwayne McBride's a sleeper for me. Gallup, Myers, 2 veteran wide receivers that can give you some flex play week in and week out. But then you got one of my favorite rookies in Josh Downs. But just looking past that and kind of the running back depth that you do have, I do think I may have had you a little high, but hoping that Lamar and then Kyler, when he comes back healthy, especially from a dynasty perspective, can carry you.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I had him at 4, so I think I had him the highest. And, taking Kyler's first half of the season out of the equation here and thinking dynasty long term, I think Kyler will be fine. I know people are thinking, they're going to draft a quarterback next year. I think his contract sort of limits that ability. I think
I've not understood that.
It's like $80 million in dead cap next year. It's insane how much money it is. There's just no way they're going to move on him from maybe 2 years from now, potentially. But We deal in 3-year windows here, so I think that Kyler's going to have at least this year and next year to sort of prove himself. So I think he'll be fine. Pickett's a good fill-in until then. Eckler kind of gives you some flexibility too to trade him away if you want to, because I do think he's gonna have another good season, but he's getting up there in age. I love DK Metcalf. I've talked about him multiple times on the podcast. He's one of my favorite players this year. But overall, I think this team is pretty solid. Again, quarterback room is pretty good with Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. Ryan, let me get your thoughts here because I think you had him at 4 as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not as low on Pickett as Shane was on that. I think Pickett's a solid floor QB2 play due to the fact we all love his weapons on offense.
I can agree.
Everyone loves Deontay Johnson. Even the Pickens hype is out of this world right now. They have a good pass catching running back, so he should have a good season. He can live in that Kirk Cousins range through his career where he is a solid player where you have to worry about him. And with the upside you have in Lamar and being a wide receiver build with those 4 wide receivers, they're going to put up a lot of points. They might be hit or miss, but you have a really solid core there. And Eckler, again, locked every week in, week out. Dalvin's going to land somewhere. I know we talked about these. He talked about the free agent running backs with like Fournette, mainly Fournette and Dalvin. Not as much Zeke, but they're going to land somewhere. And all these guys and all these backs are an injury away from being starters, whether it be Damian Harris, Elijah Mitchell, Fournette, AJ Dillon, who's going to get carries. Like they're all right there, Roshan. So there's a lot to like in that running back room. Thielen wasn't really mentioned. I think Thielen's a sneaky good play this year. I think he's the legit number 1 receiver in Carolina. And I don't mind the tight ends aren't great, but Goddard's high end and as solid as can be. There's a lot to like on this team. And if they stay healthy, they're a contender.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I want to reiterate one last time because I know the commissioner has tried to get y'all to switch over to Sleeper. So in this podcast for we've been on here for about 40 minutes. The Flea Flicker website has crashed 5 times on me. I've had to refresh the page just to get your teams up here on the screen. So please go to Sleeper. It makes my job easier to break your teams down. It makes the commission's jobs much easier. I've played on Flea Flicker. It's pretty awful if you ask me.
Yeah, but if you like bad fantasy football apps, it's right there, man. It's a nice step above. It's a step behind NFL, but it's still terrible. So enjoy, man. Do what you like. If you like the true challenge and want that throwback to just a step above, writing it in and mailing it to your friend with newspaper, Flea Flicker's for you. Have fun.
So the funny thing is the biggest knock on Sleeper is the desktop part of it is not the greatest. And I'm like, okay, maybe Flea Flicker's desktop side.
Who goes on their desktop for fantasy football?
That was my thing. Like I said,
I do fantasy football at work and when I'm on the toilet, and that's it.
But the website has crashed literally 5 times on this podcast already. So that's kind of why I was bringing that up with the desktop. So the desktop part is not better than Sleeper because it can't even run right now. All right, enough about that. Let's get to team number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4 team ranked as high as 3 and as low as 6, and it is the Bingfield Bulls. And Ryan, this is your squad here.
So look at first glance at this team. I really like it. You have Jalen Hurts, a quarterback who's obviously superstar in the making, especially if he's rushing upside. Gibbs' upside is there. I think it might be a little slower start at first this season than we'd expect. Just hold tight. It's gonna hit. Schaub is as solid as going to be, especially with Hunt gone. He has solid wide receivers with Olave and Devontae Smith. And the nice thing is with how big play dependent those two are, Nick Chubb helps kind of counteract that a little bit. Judy is as solid as you want for wide receiver 3 with everything, with him being the one wide receiver there, and has the upside being more because he's being viewed as wide receiver 2 now. Kittle obviously is a star at the position when healthy. Kirk's a little bit of a start as a question mark as your flex, but if you looked at it on the bench, Joe Mixon's there, you can fill in, and that's a locks and starter. And Jared Goff is a top end QB2 in that offense. It was record setting last year. The issues come once you get to the bench outside of Joe Mixon. That's where like it kind of drops off for me a little bit. I don't love Tannehill as the QB3. There's a chance he's going to get upstarted on his starting spot at some point rather sooner than later. Mixon, Connor solid. Moss, Hubbard, Deion Jackson, McIntosh, and there's nothing really there. I guess in the perfect world, Hubbard could get some work if Sanders goes down, but I don't love it. It's a wide receiver depth, man. Zay Jones, Lazard, Campbell, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kadarius Toney. You're hoping Toney stays healthy for the first time in his life to be a playable wide receiver. The rest are what they are. Like they're buried as lower end receivers. They're never going to make that jump. And it's not going to be people you want to start on a weekly basis if one of these guys go down. Because you've had some guys on this team with injury history who are a little bit slighter wide receivers. So I kind of want to protect that more. I love Schultz as the backup tight end. And Darnell Washington also has a lot of tantalizing things to the position. I said there's a lot I like on this team. Just a few little tweaks. Maybe move one of the running backs or move a pick, move some picks to get some more solid bench because you're in great shape on the starting lineup.
Yeah, I had this team the lowest, lowest at 6, but even that, kind of splitting hairs a little bit. But, you got Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, I think, are a great 1-2 punch. You mentioned, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, a little bit older running backs, but still very productive. Even James Conner, I think, has a decent season this year as long as he can stay healthy. My thing was with his receivers outside of Chris Olave, he's got a bunch of guys that are receiver 2s on their own team. Christian Kirk, say what you will about him. I think he'll end up being the receiver 2 behind Ridley eventually. He starts off the season as 1, but Devonta Smith also, he's another guy that potentially could be the number 1 on that team, but currently is the number 2. That's why I have it a little bit lower. Again, splitting hairs on some of these things, but this team is not one that I loved as much as some of the other teams. What about you, Raul?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you, Jeff. It just once you get into this point in the league, it is tough to pick your favorites. And for me, like while there are some studs that I love, and I do love Olave and Devonta Smith, I'm not convinced there's a high end wide receiver 1 on this team. And when the strength is and a lot of runners, rushing players, if you include Hurts. But you do leave yourself open to injury a bit. So yeah, I would make some moves to shore up the depth, but this team will be contending one way or another.
Yeah, if
healthy.
If healthy, yeah, that's the caveat with that.
Healthy. Like everything on this team scares me on the injury front.
Yeah.
Like literally every single thing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, George Kittle's there. You guys.
Devontae Smith's 175 pounds soaking wet. Olave's slight. Schaub is going to be ran to the ground. Gibbs is slight. Like I'm a little scared for the health, but if it hits, it hits.
Good stuff. All right, let's get to number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3 team ranked as high as 2 and as low as 5. And it is the Kilmer's Coyotes. And Shane, you had them at 5. So give us your breakdown here.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to the whole there's only 10 teams. You got to put these people somewhere. And I had a couple of teams that ended up pushing this team down just a little bit. But, I mean, you're starting off super strong with Josh Allen and Daniel Jones and then Breece Hall and Najee Harris. I'm super high on Najee Harris just from a volume standpoint alone. But I also had him as one of the winners of the NFL draft, him and Pickett, because they actually invested in the offensive line in Pittsburgh. So I think Najee's in store for an even better year than what we've seen so far. Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. That's awesome. Tyreek Hill is probably top 10. Top 5. Top 10 for Dynasty just because he's, I think, 29, and he's mentioned retiring at the end of this contract. I don't love that you have Jordan Addison stacked with Justin Jefferson, but Addison is the wide receiver 2 in this class. Evan Ingram's a solid tight end, and I think he's in store for even more this year.
Top 5 this year.
Huh?
Top 5 this year. Been calling it all off season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ryan, the Jaguars' offense is set to blow up in year 2 with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and then the things that they've added. I am not a Quentin Johnson guy. I've liked what I've seen in camp videos, though, to where he's actually, learned how to catch with his hands. So we'll see if that continues throughout the season. Daniel Jones is a great option at QB2. Mac Jones is an okay QB3. And you've got good depth with Aaron Jones, Alexander Madison. I like that you've handcuffed Brees with Michael Carter. You got Rashad Bateman, Jamison Williams on the bench. And then the thorn in my side that is Taysom Hill, Dawson Knox, and Michael Mayer. So you've got a good team here with a lot of depth. I think it's that wide receiver 3 flex position that I'm not super sold on.
Can we say Aaron Jones is the flex now? And
yeah,
Addison is the backup is your handcuff Justin Jefferson?
Yeah.
And does that make you feel better?
No, only slightly. Because without Rodgers, I don't know what to do with that Green Bay offense. Like, I love Aaron Jones, but I do not know what to do with that Green Bay offense this year.
They're going to have to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, but they've got A.J. Dillon, and
who's not good.
Which is stupid.
He's just not good at football.
That's fair. He's just huge. But ultimately, you've got a good team, and I just had to push it down because I liked a couple others better. Sorry.
Yeah, this team I had at number 2, and Raul, I'll get your opinion because you had him at 2 as well. But it's just because I had a lot of guys that I like. I'm high on Najee Harris. Obviously, who doesn't like Jefferson? Addison, you mentioned. I'm assuming that he went best player available there, and he didn't really care that he had Jefferson already. If he ends up being good, he can end up trading Addison away if he wanted to. You mentioned the guys on the bench. He's got some great depth with Aaron Jones, Alexander Madison. Say what you will about him, he's going to get volume this year. Even Mac Jones is a QB3. He's got some good depth there. He's got some guys with some upside like Jamison Williams and Rashad Bateman that I can, if they reach their potential, they could be really good pieces as well. So I loved this team. Ryle, what did you see?
I think it's the exact same. It has a lot of guys that I just truly love and want on all of my teams. Addison, there's a case that obviously he's young. Maybe there's a case that you sell him, next off season. You don't know what happens with Kirk Cousins there, but this is a team that's going to pass the shit out of the ball. I think Adam Thielen. I said he ran the 6th most routes on a show that I did last week, but I actually think he ran the 2nd most routes in the NFL. So that is a lot of vacated routes to both have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And where I'm not really worried about the ceiling, it's a lot of young players. Tyreek Hill is perhaps the only one who's really going to be on a declining trend. But yeah, no, I just love the players, the build. I think there's a lot of upside. It should be contending, long future. It's going to be strong for years to come.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we are up to number 2.
Number
2, I think we were all over the place on this team. I think we all had a different rank. Ranked as high as 1 and as low as 4, and it is good old grandpas. And Ryle, this is your squad.
Right. There's a lot to love about this team. You've obviously got Patrick Mahomes right at the top, and Kirk Cousins is a perfect QB2. Finishes QB12 the last 3 years in a row. That's funny that I just mentioned him actually. But then when you get to running back, you could have RBs 1 through 3 with obviously Bijan, but Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley as well. That's a lot of firepower to have. DeAndre Swift on the bench, I'm a little bit iffier than some about how usable he's going to be week to week. But that's a good option to have. And then very tasty handcuff-ish running backs in Tank Bigsby, Jalen Warren, Malik Davis, even Kene Nwangwu is getting some hype, and Abanikanda, all useful pieces. I don't think anyone's a roster clogger there. Wide receiver, you're really hoarding these top slot receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Keenan Allen, even Debo, plays a lot out of the slot. Maybe not the strength of this team, but what can be in comparison to the running backs. But there's some young cornerstone pieces there. Depth falls off a little bit from there. I mean, Mike Evans, even this season, that's a little bit questionable as how usable he's going to be. But beyond that, and Rashee Rice, KJ Osborne could be flex worthy, maybe not exciting in a 10-team league. But wide receiver, there's some trash to put it gently, to be honest. Tight end, I really like the duo up top with Dalton Kincaid, although you're probably going to be starting Darren Waller this year. Very high on him personally. Overall, I mean, this is one of the best teams in a strong league. You know, like we said at the start of the show, in these 10-team, 9-starter leagues, you really want those superstars, and this guy has all the superstars. He also doesn't have his own first, although he did trade for someone else's. I mean, I'd probably wager that it's going to be an earlier first than whatever his is going to be. His will be this year, but that just kind of gives you incentive to go all out and really go in for the ship. This year, I mean, he has his 25 first, but no other picks in that year as well. So maybe capitalize on that window. I'd even consider using the 24 first to perhaps, add another receiver. You want to get a younger piece perhaps, but shoring up depth because there is some fragility, obviously, with those running backs. But otherwise, I mean, this is a top tier team.
Yeah, definitely is. It's for sure one of the top tier teams. And when you have Patrick Mahomes, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, he pretty much put that in Superflex leagues. You got 3 of the top 10 guys probably right there. It's hard to go wrong. Even Saquon Barkley mixed in there as well, who's getting a little bit of overlooked this season after he had a huge season last year.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on this team?
I look at this team once we're talking about it and a second look, and I wish I had them higher than 3. This is a very good team. Like you said, you have Patrick Mahomes, who's basically untradeable for in Dynasty. Bijan Robinson, who's pretty close to the same thing. We've talked about the running backs in depth. I think the bench isn't bad. I know Keenan Allen and Mike Evans are old and boring, but
Consistent.
You get injuries this year and you plug them in. That's a better plug-in at wide receiver than almost anybody else has. And there's probably a half dozen or more teams on this league who will be starting DeAndre Swift all season as well. There's a lot to like. And you kind of mentioned the younger running backs who can start. Yes, it gets a little dicey wide receiver after Allen Evans. The young guys just really aren't it. Rashee Rice has got a ton of hype, but this is a good football team. And again, to win a championship, you need to stay healthy. And if this team does, they're going to just put beatings on teams.
Yeah, they're going to be hard to beat for sure.
And Waller, who we kind of mentioned, who's going to start this year for this team, is looking like a redraft superstar.
Yeah.
A 1 year, he's their only person on that team over 6'1". So he's their red zone threat on offense that was clicking last year. So I love Waller in that starting spot. This seems to be really good, man. They're a title contender.
Yeah, that was set up perfectly with the Waller and then Kincaid. You got Waller, who's going to be good this year, and then Kincaid, we think, is going to be good in at least 2 or 3 years from now. He'll be one of the top tight ends. So set up perfect.
One move I tried to make is maybe get another quarterback. I don't want Baker Mayfield, Will Levis as my QB3. Any quarterback injury, you're screwed.
Yeah.
There's a chance Baker gets beat out by Kyle Trask, as disgusting as that is to say. And Will Levis, who knows with Tennessee? You need a third quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know how or who. They don't have to be good. Move some of these scrubs on your bench. Move Rashee Rice and somebody else, somebody on your bench, and just try to get it there. But you need QB3. Move Allen Robinson.
Yeah, cheap Tannehill. I mean, not the sexiest, but then if you're putting Tannehill and Levis together to be your QB3, that covers the bench QB really.
Yeah, you need to protect that position for you because you don't want to start a non-quarterback at the position with the scoring the way it is.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we have reached the number 1 team.
Number one.
All right, the number 1 team was ranked as high as 1 and as low as 2, and the guy that ranked them at 2 unfortunately did not make the podcast tonight. So all the ones on this podcast all had him at 1, and it is OTMFW, which I'm trying to figure out what that says, but Shane, this is your squad.
I think Ryan knows what it is, but I'm not going to put him on the spot like
No,
that.
I don't, because I jumbled the letters in my head.
Okay, cool.
I thought it meant on the way to F your mom, but I just kind of like flipped
yeah,
W
you're a little
around.
off on that
It's
one.
definitely
I was a little off.
it's definitely on the MFN way.
yeah.
That makes sense. I don't know these kids.
Yeah, you flip the W and the M, and it can be perfect, Ryan. On the way to F your mom.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was super close.
Yeah,
But
you got to make that change.
I just went a little dyslexic tonight. My bad. But dude, if you're young enough to make that your name, you're young enough to be smart enough to use Sleeper, not this archaic app.
Bingo. We got it in one more time. All right, let's get down to the breakdown. So Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, I think is the best 1-2-3 punch in the league, specifically with Derek Carr being your third QB. I don't think anyone from memory has a QB3 that matches that.
Nope.
Then you've got Ramondre and
Mac
Derek
Jones out of your mouth.
Huh?
McCorkle Jones, brother. And Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, I will give you that one. Aaron
The
Rodgers
hate
is,
for McCorkle.
but McCorkle can. I don't even know. Ramondre is a question mark for me at running back, but then you've got King Henry, who I think is just part alien and going to play for, I don't know, 3 more years at least, even though he's already at the running back cliff. You have 2 of the top 3 dynasty wide receivers in Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. And then you have a third young one who I think can reach wide receiver 2 numbers in Michael Pittman Jr. You've got Travis Kelce. That's awesome. I love J.K. Dobbins. I'm interested to see how he plays out in this offense this year. But you've got him as a flex, so I'm cool with that. You've also got Sam Howell on your bench, and Jeff knows how much I love Sam Howell, so I love that. Brian Robinson is another good guy on your bench. You've handcuffed Derrick Henry with Tyjae Spears, which I think is awesome for Dynasty. Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks are both on your bench. Darnell Mooney also. Like, you have a ton of depth, a good veteran presence mixed with a lot of youth, and you've got you've traded for a first-round pick. You have your first-round pick in 25, and you've got some other picks as well. Like, this team is awesome. Like, it was almost consensus number 1, and it's okay. Zach doesn't know what he's talking about anyway, so it should have been consensus number 1.
Yeah, this team is pretty good. I know whenever I do my rankings, the first thing I look at is quarterbacks, and I'll sort the teams by their quarterback room and then kind of break it down from there. And you mentioned Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott with Derek Carr as the number 3. Hard to beat that. And then you even throw in Sam Howell, who's the potentially, could usurp Derek Carr there as the QB3 if he plays like they think he can play. So you really got 4 starting QBs you can use there. Ramondre Stevenson's going to have a humongous workload because there's literally no one behind him, assuming they don't sign Dalvin Cook. Derrick Henry, age be damned. This guy's huge. He'll be fine. And then you mentioned Chase and CeeDee Lamb is a great 1-2 combination. You got the best tight end in Dynasty right now. You got J.K. Dobbins, who I love this year, as long as he can get his ass in camp.
But Gus is there, just in case.
Just in case. You're right. He's got Gus on the bench, so he definitely backed himself up with that one. And even Brian Robinson, who I know Ryan is a big supporter of, he's going to have a huge volume role as well. So, I mean, this team is pretty loaded from top to bottom. Ryan, I'll go to you this time. What are your thoughts on this team?
I really, really like this team. Like, the bench is fantastic on this team. I mean, we've talked in nauseam about their starters, which, I mean, top to bottom, there's no weakness. They're truly not. Like, Michael Pittman is your wide receiver 3 is fantastic. If you don't want him there, throw in Deontay Johnson, who's going to get 140 targets. Brandon Cooks is an offensive for 600 times on your bench. Hunter Renfrow is still there. Jimmy Garoppolo likes to check down. We haven't even talked about him. Yeah, he's super boring, and he's old and built like me. But you know what?
Baby.
He gets open. Even like Mooney has some upside. this team's very good, and chances are whatever first round pick they have is better than what they traded for it.
Yep.
Yeah, looking at the bench, there's not one guy that I'm like, yeah, he's a roster clogger. You probably could cut him. Like literally everybody on this bench, I could see a path to some fantasy success.
Zach Wilson.
Oh, okay, Zach.
Aaron Rodgers.
He was sandwiched between the two quarterbacks, so I didn't.
You mean Aaron Rodgers' protege?
Yeah.
Stop. I watch Hard Knocks. It's his range. But dude, this is just a very well drafted team from top to bottom. Like they had no real misses. You're like, great job, dude.
Absolutely. All right, that wraps up the podcast. I want to thank you all once again for your purchase. Hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown, and hopefully you were convinced to go get onto the Sleeper platform. Super easy to transfer this league over to Sleeper. Trust me, it makes everybody's job easier, including your commish, who I know wants you to go to Sleeper because his other league that we did last week was on Sleeper. So please make his job easier. If you decide to purchase a PLP next year, make my job easier because getting on Sleeper is so much easier than doing this. But for that, so let's go around the room real quick, guys. Give us your Twitter handle and what you're working on. We'll go to you first, Raul.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at nrahul11, and then co-hosting the Fantasy Assessment, which is like we said at the start, it's essentially this, but the team at the time, me and my co-host, we go through and we'll get a little bit more specific, perhaps, into actual trades that we would like to do to set this team up. So definitely come check that out. Hop in the Discord, which I'm sure you can find in the YouTube description here. But yeah, really happy with had a good time with you guys. Really good show, and good luck for the season, boys.
Good stuff. Shane.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. Raul, this was our first PLP together, and I really enjoyed it. Jeff is probably about to have a stroke, but for Polly's playoff, you can now join the Discord. So if you want to get in on the fun either this year or next year, keep up with the podathon, etc., you can join Discord. Again, Jeff, don't stroke out on us just yet. I'm not going to plug anything else on myself. I'm just going to say, get your league on Sleeper, get your league on Sleeper, get your league on Sleeper. And if you want to follow me on Twitter at FFShaneB.
I got to explain the stroke out comment because not everybody knows. Shane hates Discord. He has been like adamantly against Discord. I have him on my Discord, and just to get him to go there and talk about anything is like pulling teeth. So one day I'm on my phone and I get, Shane has invited you to his Discord. And I'm like, what? This is not real. It's supposed to be spam. There's no way this is real. And sure enough, Shane's got a Discord now. He's asking me questions on how to get things set up. And I'm like, what has happened to the world? It's definitely, we got 100-degree oceans, and now we got Shane on Discord. It's coming to an end. Ryan, go ahead and plug your stuff.
Find me on Twitter, Foss534. Find me at the Armchair Fantasy Show, normally Wednesday nights here with Jeff. Find me over at the Rookie Big Board, or over at the Rookie Big Board. We have the Dynasty Big Board podcast. Comes out Wednesday mornings.
Good stuff. As always, guys, thank all of you for coming on to do this. Raul, Ryan, Shane, really appreciate it. I want to thank the league once more for making the purchase. Hopefully, you make a purchase next year as well. And I just wanted to plug our next week's show is going to be a fun one. We have Dr. James Freddy coming on. We are going to do a draft, a best ball draft on Underdog. And in the meantime, while we're talking about the draft, the doc's going to talk about all the injuries that are going on that we're going into the season. He's going to break them down. So
come watch me be confused with big words.
Yeah. The doc is very good about making things very simple for you. He doesn't use big words. He makes things very simple for us.
He tells me he is an ouchie and points to a spot on a dollar. It makes things much easier.
I'm gonna have him show us his demonstration of what a partial tear is and what a full tear is. It's a really good demonstration with some piece of paper that he does. It's pretty cool. But anyway, check that out next week, Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. right here on GoingFor2 Live. For Raul, for Shane, for Ryan, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all hopefully next year.